As a discipline, economics is incredibly broad. In my research, I use the tools of economics to answer policy-relevant questions in a human rights context. My name is Nishith Prakash, and I'm an associate professor of economics with a joint appointment in the Department of Economics and the Human Rights Institute at the University of Connecticut. I am primarily a development economist with interest in education, crimes against women, political economy, and lately I have become interested in the intersection of behavioral economics and social psychology. I focus on understanding and alleviating barriers to human capital accumulation for disadvantaged populations in developing countries. In one study in India, we followed the implementation of a policy that provided free bicycles to girls in grade 9 in the state of Bihar. This is also a state where I come from. The underlying idea was to reduce gender gap in enrollment because the enrollment rate for girls in grade 9 is pretty low. We found that this policy reduced the gender gap enrollment by 40%, which is a huge impact, and it also had a modest impact on learning outcomes. These girls not only just went to school, but they also graduated. This paper attracted a lot of attention from journalists, policymakers, and also donors. This led to a fascinating randomized controlled trial in Zambia, where we collaborated with the World Bicycle Relief, Innovation for Poverty Action, UBS Foundation, and the Ministry of General Education in Zambia, and evaluated the impact of a cycle program for girls on female empowerment, safety, and education. Although the majority of my research work is in developing nations, there are lots of similarities across countries, including the US. One of the obvious questions is what connects these different contexts. I'm able to apply my research in different countries because I don't just look at the direct impact of policies, I also study the underlying mechanisms of the impact. In both countries, we were able to identify that underlying mechanism. Distance to school is an important barrier to human capital accumulation, especially for girls. Another example comes from my work on crimes against women, which started in India. My research there has looked at resolving barriers to reporting gender-based violence, training programs that aim to change police attitude towards domestic violence victims, and the benefits of female police officers patrolling in areas with high instances of public sexual harassment. When you start to uncover the underlying mechanisms, the connections across contexts or countries becomes obvious. So now we have begun research on similar questions in the US. We are looking at what barriers women face when assessing domestic violence services and how identification of domestic abuse varies by gender and ways to improve it. Overall, once we identify the problems and understand the underlying factors and causal relationships, then we can apply those findings in a way that will benefit our work in both countries. Moving forward, I will continue to find ways to use economics to improve policy and improve day-to-day lives of the people, not only in developing countries, but also here in the US. For instance, I have a new project researching access to mental health services in Nepal and Bangladesh and designing curriculum to improve the well-being of adolescents there. I have already realized that the underlying factors to assessing mental health services are identical in the US. UConn has provided me with the freedom, resources, and network to explore these largely interdisciplinary questions.